All right, guys, we're going to make the coffee cup, which is the last exercise in the lesson Part Design Using Part Studios. So, as you can see, I'm in that lesson right now on Onshape. I'm going to go ahead and click Exercise Coffee Cup. This is what we're going to be creating. If you look at that and say, wow, that's complicated, well, guess what? It is. This one is pretty challenging, actually. So, I'm going to go ahead and start off by clicking on the next page. And it says create a new document and be sure the workspace length unit is set to millimeters. Begin a sketch on the front plane. Now, one of the things I would tell you is not only do you want to create this thing and set it to millimeters, but you're going to also want to change the mass to kilograms, because I know that because at the end they're going to ask us to get the mass, and they give the answer in kilograms on the little quiz. Okay, so going back, it says we're going to make a sketch on the front plane. So let's do that. We're going to right-click on the front plane, select New Sketch. Then I'm going to click on one of the planes and put Hide All Planes. I'm going to hit the N key to get a normal view, and let's get going. So the first thing they'd like us to do is create this profile here. And it says sketch the entities with the line and arc sketch tools as shown. Make sure the line indicated is a construction line. Add a tangent sketch constraint between the line and arc as indicated. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to make a construction line starting at the origin going way up high, and then I'm going to create this shape around it. So I'm going to actually move this onto my second monitor so I can see it while I'm working. So I'm going to go ahead, get the line tool and the construction line tool, hover over the origin, go straight up, making sure I have that vertical constraint till I get to the top. I'm actually going to pan this down a little bit by holding down the control key and the right mouse button and bring it down. I'm going to scoot this up just a little further. Okay, so now we're going to make lines. So I'm going to start over here. There's actually quite a few lines that we're supposed to. Actually, I'm going to start over here. So coming out somewhere about here, I'm going to start my line, go to my, so I'm coincident with the construction line, click, go down to the origin, click. Now, one of the things that happens is once you hit the origin, for some reason it makes you start over. That's okay. We'll click the origin, we'll come out a little bit, and then go up a little bit and stop. Okay, so that's my basic start, and now I'm supposed to create an arc. I'm going to click A for arc. Click here. Whoops, I missed. I'm going to hit escape, hit A again. Make sure you're highlighting the point when you click, and then click here. And I'm going to make it, if you notice, if I do it just right, it will highlight the tangent constraint for me. So I don't even have to add that tangent constraint afterwards. If you click on Show Constraints, you could see that the tangent constraint was added automatically when I got it to the right spot. So that's our starting point. Okay, let's bring the instructions back into view and see what they want next. Dimensions. Okay, we've got lots of dimensions to add. You notice there's a couple diameter dimensions, and there's a few other dimensions. So again, I'm going to bring this onto my second monitor so I can see those. And I'm going to start off with my dimension tool, and I'm going to make the distance between here and here 100. The distance, this arc is supposed to be 90. The distance from this point to the bottom is 40, and then the rest are diameter dimensions. So from this point, I'm going to click there, click the center line. Remember, if you drag over to the other side, it will become a diameter, and this is supposed to be 125. And then I'm going to do the same thing from this point, click the center line, and then when I drag it over to the other side, it becomes a diameter, and I'm going to set that to 75. Okay, so this is my fully dimensioned sketch. I'm going to bring back our instructions again and see what's next. Okay, so Now they want us to use the offset sketch tool to offset the lines and arc and 6 millimeters from the inside as shown. Be sure the indicated endpoints are coincident to the shown sketch entities. Okay, so coming back to here, we're going to get the offset tool. We're supposed to offset this curve, this line, and this line. And you notice it's created an outside offset. Well, we're going to flip that around by dragging this to the inside. Now when I click, they said to make it 6 millimeters, so there it is. Okay, now one of the things that's important to see is we gotta make sure that this point is coincident with this line, and this point here is coincident with that line. So I'm going to hit the show constraints because it looks to me, of course it's right in the way, it looks to me like that is not coincident. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to get the coincident constraint. I'm going to click here and on the line. Okay, so now that is coincident. And I'm going to pan over and do the same thing from this dot to that line, and now we're coincident. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and exit that tool. Now what they would like us to do is rename the sketch, main sketch, and accept it. So remember to rename, you click on the hidden pencil tool there, and main sketch is what it's called, and then we'll accept it. Okay, now I'm going to go to my isometric view, and they want us to revolve it around that center axis. Okay, so we can do that. We're going to get the revolve tool. We're going to click on both sketch profiles, and then we're going to click on revolve axis and select that center axis, and there it is. I'm going to back off a little bit. Okay, and then it just goes, it wants us just to go ahead and accept that. All right, there it is. That's the basic coffee cup shape. You notice it's not hollow in the middle. We are going to fix that later. Okay, so next, they want us to rename part 1 and call it coffee cup. I can do that. I'm going to right click on part 1, select rename, and call it coffee cup. Whoops, there we go. All right, so what is next? On the next slide, they want us to create a new sketch on the front plane. Okay, rotate normal to the front plane. So we want a front view, back out a little bit, and we're going to create a new sketch on the front plane. Now, you don't have to unhide that in order to do that. I can just go over hover over the front plane in the default geometry list, right click, and make a new sketch. That works too. And I'm going to click N to make it normal. Okay, now I'm supposed to make a sketch that looks like a construction line, a curve, and another line coming off it. Now, I think the way to go about this is to create that construction line first. So if you notice, it's just inside the edge of the cup and it comes down diagonally out this way. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to pan this down so I can see what's going on here. And I'm going to get a construction line, so the line and the construction line start in here and go diagonal. And that will be good enough. We're going to dimension everything later. Then I'm going to get my 3-point arc. I'm going to create an arc between those 2 points. And I'm going to keep going and eventually I'm going to go a little farther than I intended to. And now I'm going to make this coincident with this. So I'm going to hit coincident, the center of the arc, and the construction line. And finally, I'm supposed to make another line that would come off that out here somewhere. And if you notice, if there's a constraint that appears that is perpendicular to that line, I actually do want that constraint. So I'm going to click over here. Okay, now if I go back to my instructions, let's see what we did. We had a tangent arc. Yeah, I believe that's already going to be tangent because of what I did before, but let's just show the constraints. It actually doesn't show that, so let's add that. Tangent between the curve and the line. Okay, you notice it didn't change anything because technically by definition, the way I set it up, it's already tangent, but I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to do what they told me to. Okay, so it looks like we've done everything they asked. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so they want us to show the main sketch and hide the coffee cup, and then make the endpoints coincident to that inner offset shape that we made, and then add some dimensions. Okay, I'm going to take this and move it to my other monitor so I can see all that. So they want me to show the main sketch, hide the coffee cup. Okay, now we're supposed to do some coincident constraints, coincident between that point and that arc, and then coincident between that point and that line. Okay, now we're supposed to add some dimensions. So the first dimension I'm going to add is to the arc, and I'm going to make it 20. Uh-oh, I lost my coincident. Huh, that's pretty weird. That's supposed to be coincident to here. You know, I think the problem is the angle that I have it at. So let me set some more of the dimensions, and then let's see if that doesn't fix it. So, because I think partly this is at the wrong angle is the problem, but that's okay. We're gonna dimension between that point and the bottom here. We're gonna make that 80. I think what I'm gonna do actually, I'm gonna hit escape and I'm gonna drag this line up. There we go. See, once I get to the right spot, it does show it kind of back on my line. So I'm going to do that. And then the other dimension that I was supposed to add is from this point to the bottom is 25. And there it is. Okay. Just double checking to make sure that looks... Oh, I see. Part of the problem is it doesn't look right. And I was wondering why it didn't look right. And that's because this is actually supposed to be 85. There we go. Now it looks more like the picture. And I'm going to drag that picture back down, so just in case you don't believe me. There it is. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And we're going to rename the sketch path and accept the sketch. Okay, so rename this path. And then we're going to accept the sketch. Okay, next, we're going to create a new reference plane using the curve point option. Select the line and the endpoint from the path sketch as shown, and then we'll create that plane. Okay, so this one's kind of tricky. So I'm going to actually move this again to my second monitor so I can see what's going on. I'm going to make this isometric because that could be helpful, and plus that's what they were doing. Excuse me. And I'm going to start with this plane tool. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to, instead of offset, I'm going to select curve point. Okay, and then I'm supposed to select this line and this point. Oh boy, I'm going to need to zoom in on that, make sure I'm getting the right point. There it is. Okay, and you can see it's got this sketch, and what we've done is we've set the point that the plane is on, and we've also, that line that we created is designated as normal to that or perpendicular to that plane. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to accept that. Okay, and so I've got that sketch plane. I'm going to go to my next slide, and we're supposed to create an ellipse on there. So I'm going to create a new sketch first by right-clicking on my new plane and hitting New Sketch, and I'm going to sketch an ellipse. Okay, and boy, this is the one thing that goofed me up a little. I'm just going to make the ellipse anywhere on here. So I'm going to click and drag out an ellipse. Okay, and it shows that the dimension, the width is 14 and the height is 10. So I'm going to enter 14 and 10. Okay, now I'm supposed to create a coincident constraint between the middle point here and that point right there. So I'm going to click on my coincident constraint. I have a feeling this is the step that's going to give people the most trouble. Okay, so there we go. Now we've made that. If I look at it normal, click the normal, it looks just like that. And there's your 14 by 10 ellipse. Okay. let me bring the instructions back into the picture. On my next slide, we are going to rename it Profile and accept it. So we'll click over here, rename it Profile, and click the green checkbox to accept it. And I'm going to go back to my isometric view. Okay, now it looks like they unhid the coffee cup, so we can do that, and they hid the main sketch again. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to unhide the coffee cup and hide the main sketch. Okay, so we got something that looks like this. I think you guys can see that what we've got here is basically our handle. And something is, oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. I was just confused a little second. You see how it gets like the arc turns dotted? Well, that's because it's behind the part. Okay, just making sure that it wasn't a construction line. Okay, so going back to the instructions, we're going to create a solid sweep, and we're going to make that handle. Okay, and if you notice, we're with solid, add, and then the coffee cup will be the merge scope. So we're going to go to sweep. We're going to sketch. Okay, now what I'm going to actually do is click on that profile, because if you notice, I can't really get at it. I could hide the coffee cup again, and then I could click on it. That works. Okay, or I can just click on that profile sketch. Okay, now sweep path, if I click on that, that's going to be both of these lines. And there it is. There's my beautiful handle. Okay, and going back to our instructions, it say go ahead and just accept it. So I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to go back to a front view. Look at that. It's starting to look like a coffee cup, isn't it? Okay. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the hollowed out inside of the cup. Okay, so we're going to do a remove revolve. That's something we haven't done before. And we're going to set the inner profile of the main sketch as the region to revolve. So I'm going to get back to that isometric view. And I need to unhide my main sketch. And I'm actually, to do this revolve, I'm going to click on the revolve tool, click on remove. Now again, you notice I can't access my sketch. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to hide the coffee cup. Now I can click on that. And then the revolve axis is going to be right here. Now when I bring my coffee cup back into view, you can see that we're going to have to select our merge scope, which is the coffee cup. That's the thing that we're hollowing out. Merge scope is like what are you removing from? And that would be our coffee cup. So there we go. And I believe we're just supposed to accept this. Yep, okay. Whoa, really looking like a coffee cup now. I'm going to hide that plane because that's dorky looking. And I'm going to hide that main sketch and look at my beautiful coffee cup. All right, so next. Okay, so we're going to add some fillets to really round this out. I'm going to make it a truly nice looking coffee cup. So I'm going to do a 12 millimeter fillet, not only on the bottom outside edges, but the inside of the cup as well. All right, so you've got kind of a sharp edge on the inside. So we're going to put a 12 millimeter fillet for both of them. So here's the fillet. And I set this to 12. And then I'm going to get that outside edge. And then I'm going to get that inside edge as well. And you can see it's nice and rounded out in both spots. And I'm going to accept that. Let's get back to a front view. Yikes. Okay, and then actually I'm going to go to the isometric view because then we're going to do some little fillets at the top. You wouldn't want to put your mouth on that. That'd hurt. So we're going to get a 2 millimeter fillet on both of the top edges. Okay, so let's get that fillet tool again. Make it 2 millimeters. And we're going to select this edge and that edge. And we're going to accept it. Yeah, look at that. That is a heck of a nice looking coffee cup. Except for it doesn't say Mr. Johnson is the coolest teacher ever on the outside. That's how we would know it's a great coffee cup. All right, now we're supposed to make this thing porcelain. So I'm going to go over, right click on the coffee cup, assign materials, And I'm going to click where it says none. I'm going to type POR, and there's my porcelain. All right, let's get a nice isometric view. Look at that beauty. Okay, so now what? I believe we're supposed to get the mass, and we are. So click on mass properties and see what our mass is. This is why I told you guys to make it kilograms, by the way. Once I click over here, it says 0.578 kilograms, which now we can go into here. Since we're at the end of our slides, we're going to click next page, begin self-check, 0.578 kilograms. And then let's see our results. Ho ho! Right on, it worked. So there you go, guys. There's your coffee cup. Now go have some coffee.